Tuscan orange grapefruit. My God, America is imploding.
There's only one way to open up Mayhem at the Multiplex, because I think this is the first video, and it's with Michelob Ultra Tuscan Orange Grapefruit. I think that's going to be the new Fanzone video. Who knows? Hello, welcome to Mayhem at the Multiplex 3, Video 1. We are here for an exhibition match of Fanzone. So basically, if you don't know what Fanzone is, it is our debate league here at Multiplex, and we've got an exhibition match for you. Currently, we're in the middle of a rookie tournament, but we thought it'd be fun to, instead of just having a random match here, we'd get a couple fun competitors into the ring for an exhibition-style match. Those fun competitors today are Cody Newberry and Little Boat Caleb Boatman. I'm excited about this. Our last exhibition match we did, I think it was for King's Day, or maybe it was, I don't remember what it was for. Or no, I think it was just a random match we did. It was Cody versus Coho, and that was really fun. So Boatman threw his ring, or his hat into the ring for the next one. I'm excited about it. I've got two other judges here with me today. We've got Nicholas Tuig, first time judge on the show. Nick, how you doing?
Yeah. Doing good. I'm excited for a lovely conversation between two civil individuals, and definitely not have anyone have any hard feelings once we leave today.
That sounds about right. And then there's Robert Parker, no stranger to helping me judge Fanzone lately. Robert,
yes.
Tell me,
yes.
How many votes are you going to give to Cody? Because you already know before we start the match.
Well, currently my Venmo balance is sitting at 0, but we'll see if that changes by the end of the match. You could call me a professional judge, in that if you pay me, I'll vote your way.
Sounds good. Well, let's bring in the first competitor. I'll bring in Little Boat so he can have things to say before Cody has anything to say. Boatman, you have your first official Fanzone match coming up later this season, but you're playing in this exhibition match. Why are you here?
I just want to start off by saying, The Departed, it's great. Shawshank Redemption, it's great. Middle Earth movies, they're great. The Schmodown, it's great. Everything is great. Except it's not great, Tim. It sucks. But also, Robert, it's great. Love me.
That was fantastic. All right, so that was a great little opening there from Caleb Boatman. Let's bring in I believe he calls himself the God of Debate. Oh no, wait, that was someone else. Cody, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just excited to see a Fanzone debate where we won't have leeches on penises, anybody fucking pies, or any of that teenage comedy shit coming. So I'm really excited for just a normal debate against Boatman. Boatman wanted to play me. I said sure, and maybe next time I'll play Scully. I don't know. I'll just beat all the Kingsmen. It'll be fun. Exhibitions all around.
Sounds good. Well, guys, anyway, if you don't know how the show works, here's how it works. It is a debate show. We've got 4 questions that each player has been given. They sent in answers, and they are going to debate the questions given. So they will each have 1 minute to open their argument. Then there will be a 5-minute free-form argument, and then there will be a 1-minute closing for each competitor. The first player to get to 3 points is the winner. If it is tied at the end of the main round, we will move on to a speed round question to decide the winner. So that is the way it works, and we're going to get just right into it right away with the first category, which is a fandom category. This one drafted by Mr. Newberry, if I'm not mistaken. And the question is in the category of James Bond. The question is, what is the best opening to a Bond film? Ooh, interesting. So because Cody drafted this one, he is going to get a minute to open his argument whenever he starts talking.
So there's a lot to choose from. And when I say a lot to choose from, not a lot. Bond has kind of made me hate cinema. But the one series that the one Bond character is Daniel Craig's, and I went with Skyfall. Skyfall is a long open shot that has a lot of various things. He sees an agent shot. He's trying to attend to them. M is at a totally different way than she's ever been. She doesn't care about anybody. She just needs the target to be caught. And like Bond's like fighting with that the entire time. And then it honestly ends on a fight in a train where Naomi Harris is pointing the gun at Bond and says, I don't have a clean shot. And M's saying, take the shot. And he gets shot and falls off the train while the person goes on. So that's M showing that she didn't even care about Bond at the point. It's 2 movies in. It's the important. It has the most stakes, so it's the best scene.
Time. Okay. So the opening of Skyfall for Cody. Let's move over to Boatman. Boatman, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
I also picked a Daniel Craig James Bond because I do think he's one of the better James Bonds. I picked the opening of Casino Royale. This is the opening that recontextualizes who Bond is. You get the kill of the man in the office, and you also get his second kill of the man in the bathroom. Actually, first kill, second kill of the man in the bathroom, and you get the great shot of the black and white transition to the classic Bond gunshot opening. And it's a way to kind of recontextualize that just normal Bond walk and shoot into, oh, this is what we're doing now. This is a new Bond. This is a scene that defines who Daniel Craig is, Daniel Craig's Bond is as a character. And that's why it's the best opening scene in any James Bond movie.
Okay, finishing about 8 seconds early, but we've got the opening of Skyfall versus the opening of Casino Royale. You guys have 5 minutes. Remember, even back and forth. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
Okay. So my issue with Casino Royale, yes, it shows that he gains his 00 status, but overall both scenes are very clunky, very thrown together. They do like an artistic like black and white to show that this is Bond and he's going to go through 2 scenes. I don't even think the fight in the bathroom is that actually exciting for a Bond thing. It doesn't even show that it's good action at that point. With Skyfall, he's already been through Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, and he's now had that strained relationship with M. So when M tells him to take the final shot and shoots him off the thing, and it ends pretty much with her taking off the thing because she knows she kind of screwed up, but she knows that she had to take the shot. That just shows that scene ends with intrigue. The other one just says, okay, we got a Bond. Here we go.
All right. Well, first responding to the clunky statement, I think it's supposed to feel a little bit clunky. It's supposed to feel a little bit off. This is not our Bond that we know from all the other ones. This is not the perfect spy. He's still figuring stuff out, so it's not going to be as smooth. It's going to be a little more clunky. It's going to feel a little more gritty, and that's what this sets up, is the more gritty tone and feel of these Bond movies. It sets up the tone more than anything. My problem with the opening of Skyfall is ultimately it's the take the bloody shot moment and then just a bunch of build up to that. The take the bloody shot moment, that's a cool moment, but other than that, you don't really have that much impressive in that scene. That's a cool moment, but you have a cool moment in Casino Royale with the 2 and then the shoot. Like, you have cool, intriguing moments.
I have to disagree with you because it's all the lead up to him, like why he's running through the buildings trying to find it, the chase through the streets, the action sequence of new Moneypenny basically having to become another agent on that side. That's the first time we've ever seen that character be that way, and have to go after them because M is giving her a mission on top of what Bond is. The fight on top of the train is way more exciting than anything else. And if I wanted a great bathroom fight scene, I'd watch them. This was great before Mission Impossible Fallout. Now Fallout's coming. That bathroom scene looks like a joke compared to what that is out of a Bond thing. It's not it's easy. It's over really quick. Like, I think most people don't even remember that scene. They remember the next scene to follow in Casino Royale. I think that's one of the weakest points because yes, it does the title sequence, but it doesn't do what Bond is meant to do. And that's with that intrigue and understanding where it goes on from there. We just know we have a 00 after that point, and we knew he was already Bond.
Well, first off, the Mission Impossible Fallout comparison, they're both scenes that take place in a bathroom. Just because of their location doesn't mean anything. We can compare train fight scenes all day long. Like, I'm saying, what?
Find one that's better than mine.
Unstoppable. There you go. The community.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm saying location is not the defining of a scene. They're two different tones of fight scenes, but we're not arguing Mission Impossible here. Ultimately, right, we've got a scene here with Casino Royale that it's more about who Bond is as a character. It's not supposed to be the coolest fight. It's not supposed to be the spectacular visual impressive, because that's not who this James Bond is as a character. He's not the cool suave guy yet. There's a reason later on in the movie, they've got the setup for the shaken not stirred, and they go the other way. There's so many times where they swerve the other way. It's about changing the expectations of who this Bond is as a character, and that's what this opening scene is changing the expectations of what you're going to get. Ultimately, your scene is just, let's set up M and who her character's going to be.
Yeah, well, no, M is already fleshed out. Like, that's who M is, but M is actually taking a turn because she knows what's on the other end with Silva and what's coming down the line. One problem with your character is, I understand that you're saying like the bathroom scene doesn't matter, but I'm saying with a spy battle scene, the fight doesn't really hold up in that manner, and yours is the one trying to get to the title sequence. That's mainly what your thing is to do. We need something before we go to the Dominican Republic. We need something before the fight scene, so we need to get to the gunshot. Mine starts with actually no gunshot, which is one of the coolest ones, where it doesn't have to open with the traditional shoot down the barrel and watch it all happen. That connects you to Bond, but this is the Bond that we've had to fight through Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, and we see something that you don't actually see in a Bond movie, where he literally gets taken out and you don't know where the movie goes from there. Your scene sets up, okay, he's James Bond. I knew he was James Bond. Now he's going to go play poker, I guess. Like, there was no actual intrigue and any like actual danger or anything exciting to happen that makes you go, wow.
Ultimately, my scene sets up what this James Bond is about.
Okay. Good round. Let's move to Boatman, who is going to get a minute to close his argument when he starts talking.
Okay. So again, I think everything about my opening fight scene, it's not the most spectacular action scene. It's not this giant flashy thing. It's very understated. It's very brash. It's very Greengrassian. And that's who this James Bond is as a person. He's more rough and tumble. He's not as flashy and fancy. This is a different kind of Bond, and it's a different kind of Bond opening with the setup of that. Not having the barrel sequence is not really a plus. It's just, wow, we don't have the barrel sequence. Okay, but you just don't have something. That's not really a plus. Ultimately, you might have a train. You have a fight sequence with the train, but again, this is all just build up for M's motivations later on in the movie. Whereas my opening scene, my fight scene is set up who Daniel Craig is as a person, and that's what scene right now.
Okay. Ending about 5 seconds early there. Cody, you now have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
I think he says that my opening scene is only to set up M's motivation. That's what an opening scene's supposed to do. It's supposed to intrigue you and get you to go to the next set of scenes in the movie. Yours sets up Bond. Well, great. There's a lot of introductions of Bond. A lot of players have played Bond. There's a lot of introductions to Bond. Yours shows a grittier side to Bond, but it honestly doesn't tell us anything about Bond besides that he killed 2 people and we got to see him earn his 00 status. Like, there are way better scenes that carry on, but it's really hard to take many scenes away from the first scene of my movie because it changes the entire game. It changes everything. Where M would protect James with his entire life and literally shoots him off the train. You have Moneypenny that has to deal with that. She just could have killed James Bond. You have the entire fight throughout the city to try to get to the moment and them getting cut off at every pass. There's just way more action. Yours is just a gritty scene that shows who Bond is, but it doesn't even show who Daniel Craig is. There's more scenes later on that show who Craig is. This just shows that he earned his 00, which you have to get
time. All right. Oofda. Ooftity do. Okay. This was really good. This is a good opening fight. I liked it. It was honestly really close to me. There was a really good back and forth in the open round where pretty much everything each competitor said to the other, there was a good rebuttal with a follow up about why theirs was great and why the others wasn't. It was very close the whole time. I think what ultimately sold me in the end is Cody's closing, where he basically made the point of the opening scene is supposed to get you interested in the movie you're watching and the movie and the intrigue of the movie that you're going for. And that happens in Skyfall, in the opening of Skyfall, whereas Boatman's kind of whole thing was this is setting up Bond, which I think he sold really well, but I think Cody nailed the point home in the closing that it's, you know, it's more about the setting up the movie, the rest of the movie, and there's other great moments that set up who Daniel Craig is in the movie, not just the opening. So I'll give my point to Cody. Robert, no, I'm sorry, Nick, let's go to you next.
Sure. So I agree. It was a lot closer than I thought it would be. I really liked the route Boatman took. Because Cody, a lot of Cody's like first jabs were like the action isn't as good. And Boatman's retort was that it's not really about the action. It's about setting up who Daniel Craig is as Bond. And I agree. I think he sold that really well. I especially liked his barb about the build-up to take the bloody shot, how it's all a build-up to a moment that's sort of better than the rest of the scene itself. But where Cody won me is the fact that Skyfall ends with intrigue. It makes you want to know what's next, whereas the opening of Casino Royale is sort of overshadowed by the very next scene, which Cody pointed out. I also wish Boatman had come up with a better train fight than Unstoppable, but that's just a side note. But for all those reasons, setting up who M as a character is now, in sort of retort to Boatman setting up who Bond is, that's why I'm going to go with Cody.
Okay, so Cody gets the first point. Robert, you did not get to vote. Where were you going on this one?
I actually would have disagreed with you guys. I would have gone with Boatman on this one. I think that he did a really good job of, like, his main argument was the establishment of the character and the establishment of the rest of the movie. And I think he did actually give a number of references to, like, later in the movie where it calls back to that sort of not so suave character, right? The shaken not stirred kind of line, where he was talking about how the opening scene is sort of reminiscent of the rest of the movie, where it does kind of change expectations a little bit. So I really liked that argument. I thought Cody obviously had a very good argument as well. This is a really close one, but I would have leaned slightly towards Boatman.
All right. Well, even still, Cody gets the first point. So we move on to question number 2, which is a category that Boatman drafted it's a Warzone category, the category of directors, specifically Albert Brooks. The question is, what is the funniest Albert Brooks directed film? Boatman gets to go first on this one since he drafted it. So, Mr. Boatman, 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
I am going with Albert Brooks' 1991 film Defending Your Life. This is, for those who don't know, this is basically a depiction of the afterlife where the characters need to defend their own actions in a courtroom setting, basically. This is Albert Brooks at his most creative and his most funny. There are so many unique ways that he depicts the afterlife. And the key comedic performance in this is Rip Torn as lawyer Bob Diamond, who is very funny as how much he thinks little of the actual non-advanced life forms in the facility and how little he thinks of Albert Brooks. There are very many moments that where Albert Brooks gets himself into trouble here. One of my favorites is we go back and see his life on Earth, him negotiating with his wife, preparing to negotiate for a higher salary with his boss, and his boss makes him a low offer, and he says, "I'll take it." And it's a very funny moment, and I love this movie a lot.
Time. All right. We will move over to Cody then for his opening argument. Funniest Albert Brooks directed film. 1 minute when you start talking.
Okay, so I'm not a big Albert Brooks fan, or I haven't seen a lot of his films, but the one that I had to go with is Lost in America. So I watched both of these films, and Lost in America, yes, it's a road trip film. Yes, I've seen many movies do this, but this is one that Albert Brooks is a straight man when it comes to comedy. Like, he has moments, but like, it's the way he sets it up. So he's basically a guy that's working his job. He goes in for a promotion, and they literally tell him that we're going to give it to another guy, and you're going to go to New York, and you're going to be transferred. He's like, I worked here for 8 years. You're going to transfer me? No, fuck you. And like goes on this entire rant, and then finally convinces his wife, you know what? We're going to quit our jobs, and we're going to go across to America. We're just going to enjoy our lives. We're not going to do anything else. We'll have a nest egg. It's a great time. And then he like gets in the casino. He goes to Las Vegas. His wife convinced him to stay one night. She gambles his entire nest egg away, so he has to go back into normal society and like decide on life. It's hilarious. This movie's great.
Time. All right. I haven't seen either of these movies, so this will be interesting.
They're
Guys,
both great. Check them out.
I enjoyed the pictures so far. So 5 minutes open here when one of you starts talking.
Here's my biggest problem with Lost in America as a whole. I think the movie has some good road trip premises. I think a lot of what the movie is trying to say comedically is lost to time a little bit, because this is making a lot of big statements about the 80s yuppie era, which isn't around anymore. So it's a film that, unless you really experience and were closer to the 80s yuppie era, you're missing out on a lot of the humor. And I think a lot of that kind of goes over, because this feels like a very like boomer movie, for lack of a better word. It feels like, the yuppie society is so yuppie, and we're going to go out and recapture the 60s. And ultimately, I think a lot of the humor is lost a little bit to time.
Okay, well, I have to disagree with you. I understand where it could be, but I didn't grow up in the 80s, and I was laughing hysterically. The problem with defending your life, if we had funniest concept of a movie, you win by a mile. But where this is funniest movie, your movie is not actually that funny across the board. There are moments, there are belly laughs, there are good points. But at the end of the day, this is actually a heartbreaking, like, romantic story. He wants to stay with Meryl Streep, but they're at two different timers and they have to battle between it. Lost in America, she literally gambles his entire nest egg. He goes into an entire rant on the car and goes, don't ever use the word egg, don't even use bird, don't use nest, don't use anything, because you don't understand what the concept actually means. Like, he goes on this huge rant, and they're walking across, they like leave, and they're like, I forget, like they're apologizing. It's such a merry dynamic. It's so good. But defending life, again, it rides that line with funny, but it also has got a heart to it. It's also got romantic elements. It's not comedy. It's not straight funny, and you will not laugh the entire time.
All right, so your argument is there are more romantic elements. There are other elements that aren't inherently funny. I would argue losing all your money isn't inherently funny. Losing your job, being transferred is not inherently funny. There are things in Lost in America that are not inherently funny. There are things in defending your life that are not inherently funny, but it's about the way that they're being done. There are moments that are meant to be more dramatic, but a lot of comedies have more dramatic, more romantic moments. Ultimately, you still get the creative premises. You get the stuff like the comedy club where the comedian clearly doesn't understand how these people work. You get to see the past lives pavilion where you get to see how Howard Brooks' character was always afraid no matter which life he's in.
So yeah, with Lost in America, like, yes, it's not inherently funny, but how they deliver it is funny. So basically what you're saying is, you're saying a bunch of things, but back to the question, the funniest movie that he's directed. Yes, you're having a lot of drama moments. You've mentioned a lot of things about your movie that is drama filled. But when he's sitting in his room and doesn't want to be judged anymore, he's tired of this process, he's upset, like that emotional weight on him, and you feel for him in the movie. You're not belly laughing. The end of the movie in Miners, when she's working at Wiener Schnitzel and he was just a crossing guard for freaking money after he made $100,000, and he looks at him and goes, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking the same thing. I should go eat shit and live in New York. Yep. And they both just drive across country, and he starts chasing his former boss around New York because he wants his job back and he has to kiss ass. Like, that's hilarious to me. Your movie it's kind of a sad concept. You have to go after you die and defend what you did on Earth, and it's not all freaking hilarious the entire time.
Well, you originally started out by saying it was the funniest concept between the two of us, and now it's not. But anyway, I'm saying that even just because this movie has more dramatic, more romantic moments, ultimately those sadder moments make things feel more realistic, which ultimately makes the jokes land more. Because you're getting the contrast. You're getting the contrast between the more sad stuff and the more funny stuff. When we get Lawyer Bob Diamond, we get the stuff with the food, and we get to see the hotels, and we the way that this world is all set up, which is very inherently funny. You get to go into the Chinese restaurant, which I think is very funny. I think there's ultimately a lot of funny moments with yours. Again, I think a lot of the stuff in Lost in America gets lost with the satire. I think there's one moment where it's just like, we're going to be Easy Rider now, and we're going to just do what Easy Rider did. And it's funny because we're referencing Easy Rider, and that's the joke. Like, ultimately, your movie has individually funny moments, but the actual concept as a whole doesn't glue together because it's not consistently funny.
No, it's consistently funny. She loses her entire thing, and he sits down at the manager of the casino, and says, "Give me my money back." And they're like, "We can't." Well, listen, I work in advertising. I'm going to tell you this thing where you actually give us our nest egg back. What a genius! And he's like, "That's a terrible idea." No, it's brilliant. Just I'll let you think like you came up with it. The whole movie is just belly laugh on top of belly.
All right, so that is the end of the 5 minutes. Cody is now going to get 1 minute to close his argument when he starts talking.
I mean, Boatman basically says that if you're not from a certain generation, like, you can't laugh at this movie. But, like, I wasn't around when Vacation came out, and I still find Vacation hilarious. Lost in America is a perfect road trip movie that basically they're going to they get down on their luck. They actually have to go back. Like, he sits there in a job agency and has to, like, offer, like, get a temp job, and they're like, "How much did you make in your last job?" $100,000. And he's like, "Don't have one." Like, they're laughing at him the entire way. He just doesn't understand because he goes down to a lower life than he's used to. It's hilarious. Defending your life is good, but you're rooting for the character. You're never laughing with him. You're feeling bad for him the entire time. And I understand that you need some depressing stuff to make the funny hit harder, but it doesn't leave you with belly laughs. Like, once you get to the world of, like, oh, they're defending their life, this is the waiting point to heaven or wherever they go in the next stop, it just doesn't live up to the hype. It's a great concept, but overall it's not the funniest movie directed by him because the jokes don't hit. The jokes don't hit always because it's not meant to be a full-on comedy. Lost in America is.
Time. All right, we'll now move over to Boatman for his closing. 1 minute when you start talking.
There are so many interactions within Defending Your Life that are clearly meant to be funny, and they clearly hit very, very hard. You get the scene, all the courtroom scenes are meant to be hilarious, and they work because the prosecutor has Daniel, Albert Brooks's character, on the ropes the whole time. He has to keep changing his story. He's like, "Well, I ratted my friend out because I didn't want to lie to my father." "So you've never lied to your father?" "Well, I didn't say that because I have about 500 examples of you lying to your father." And then we can montage of that. There are so many moments where he is on the ropes. Albert Brooks plays nervousness like nobody else, and he presents being on the ropes very funnily. Lost in America, again, I think is a movie that just because Vacation works, it's a different movie. Lost in America is trying to satirize something very specific about the 1980s that Vacation isn't, that other road trip movies aren't. And that's why Defending Your Life hits harder, because it's multi-generational.
Time. Okay. Let's bring in dem judges. Robert, your vote did not count last time, so we will start with you first.
Sounds good. This is really tough because I also have not seen either of these movies, so I just kind of have to go off the preferences. You know, when people say, "Oh, the thing with the food," or "the part in the office," like, I don't know what those mean, so I had to kind of go based on who broke down their moments a little bit better, and then also who kind of on a broader scope argued which movie was a little bit funnier. Again, really great argument, really great fight. Like, both people had jabs, both people had counters to the other people. Like, it was a very well fought fight. I think just a little bit, I have to lean Boatman on this one, and that's mainly because of he hammered it home on the end. I think when Boatman mentioned the satirism and how, like, that has not aged well, I think Cody kind of countered the wrong point from Boatman. Cody said, "Well, I wasn't around, but I still thought it was funny." I don't think that's really the point Boatman was trying to make, and I think he hammered it home that it wasn't about, you know, being around at that time. It was more just that satire hasn't aged well. So based on that point, I have to go Boatman, but it was incredibly close, and I'm excited to hear what these two boys have to say.
Yes, we're going to go over to Nick next. Nick, where are you leaning on this one?
Well, unlike the two of you, I've seen each of these movies at least 100 times. Okay, never seen either, but you both did great. For me, Boatman ran away with this one. Not seen them, I agree with Robert. It's kind of hard. And both of you did sort of like pitching scenes and jokes, and both of you argued that like the jokes don't hit and some jokes do, but with comedy, it's really subjective, so it's kind of hard to use that as an argument. And you both did it, so that was kind of null and void for me. Cody did call Boatman's the funniest concept, and then did try to call it the saddest concept. And I think Boatman just really counteracted that as well as he could when he said the best comedies have different sort of layers. And the contrast of the not funny makes the funny even funnier. So that's what really put Defending Your Life over the edge for me. And that's why I would give the point to Boatman.
Okay, so that means Boatman does get this point. My vote didn't count, but I would have also gone Boatman. This one, I don't think Boatman ran away with this one, like you said, Nick, but I do think that he did a better job of explaining why his is funnier, maybe like lasting, and that's kind of where it came down, because like you guys, I don't know the movies. They were pitching funny stuff that makes me want to see the movies, but ultimately the point that got me was Boatman's this Defending Your Life is something that's multi-generational. We'll get there forever. Cody's movie might not hit exactly for everyone, so it can't really be the funniest. So yeah, so Boatman gets this point. We're going to move on to question numero 3, which is in a category that Cody drafted. And that is in the category of actors and actresses, specifically Dustin Hoffman. And the question is, what is the best Dustin Hoffman performance pre the year 2000? So, since Cody drafted this one, he gets to go first. Cody, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
So basically, I had to break this down as performance and not movie, because there are a lot better movies than what I chose, but the best performance, the one that he is doing 10 times better than any other movie, and that is Tootsie, where he plays two characters. He plays Michael and he plays Dorothy. He has to fight inside, basically, because as Dorothy, as this lady on top of on this sitcom, this soap opera, he falls in love with this girl, and he wants to just tell her that he's Michael, but he has to do this because somebody called him out and said he could never pull off this performance, and he has to battle between these two things. So he's playing two different characters this entire time, and he does it flawlessly. One of the last scenes in this movie, when he finally goes from Dorothy to Michael live on screen, like, it's one of the best movie scenes because he steals the entire show. Hoffman's a fantastic actor in this movie, and I'll talk about it more later.
All right. Time. All right, we'll move over to Boatman. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
All right, I'm going with Dustin Hoffman's performance in the film The Graduate. In this film, Dustin Hoffman is doing so much under the surface. This was his first big role, and ultimately, Hoffman here is playing young Benjamin Braddock, who ends up becoming in a relationship with a friend of his parents named Mrs. Robinson. I think you all know the story. But the way that Dustin portrays desperation in this, a slight amount of comedy, especially in the scene where he first is being seduced by Mrs. Robinson, and she keeps kind of coming on to him, and he's just like, okay, can I go now? And he's portraying nervousness so well. He's doing so much underneath the surface. He's not doing a giant, big, flashy performance. He's doing a lot under the surface, but ultimately I think that's harder because you still recognize what he's doing.
All right, ending about 5 seconds early. Okay, we've got Tootsie, The Graduate. Is excited. All right, 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
Okay, well, I'll go. Dustin Hoffman's great in The Graduate. But honestly, first role, you can kind of see that he's basically playing himself throughout scenes. He's about the right age. He sits there. He's nervous. He acts that way. But he's like literally the driving force for every other great character throughout this entire movie. Like Mrs. Robinson, the girl he's going after, even Mr. Robinson, his parents. Like, he's just a teenage kid, just like doesn't know what to do with the rest of his life, gets into an affair with this woman and doesn't know what to do. When in Tootsie, he literally has to balance between both characters. I'm sorry that my character might not have stuff hidden that you get away with in a therapy session to find out what's actually underneath the surface of a character. But this one, you actually see what his struggle is because he's in love with this woman. He can't tell her because obviously he's in full-on drag at this point and doesn't know what to just say. Hey, I'm Michael. I'm actually in love with you and I want to be with you. So like he's playing between two characters. Yours is just, he's literally the driving force for everybody else. He's not the best character even in that movie.
Well, we're not arguing best character in The Graduate. We're not arguing even best character. We're arguing about the performance itself. And ultimately, as far as Tootsie goes, I think the big problem with Tootsie, it's not Tootsie, it's Michael. Michael is the problem with that movie. You get the scene where he's talking to his agent about the tomato. Dustin is playing it way too over the top, way too comedic. That's not who Michael should be. Michael should be the more reserved version of that character so that Tootsie's laughs are made funnier. Ultimately, Michael, when he's talking about the tomato, I was a tomato, and I was the best tomato ever. He's way too over the top, way too hyper, and ultimately makes the movie feel too cartoony and the character feel too cartoony. So when Tootsie shows up, it's just a cartoon in a cartoon world rather than a cartoon in a realistic environment.
Well, I have to disagree with you. That's a great thing about Tootsie. Dorothy is the most subdued character of them. Michael's the overtop one. That's why Michael wasn't getting roles. Michael wasn't getting cast because he was an overactor. He worked too hard. He tried to tell everybody how to do stuff. He was an acting coach. That's who he is. He was telling, when he talks about the tomato scene, he's basically telling this entire scene of how great of an actor he personally was. You're telling, and then with Graduate, I'm back to it. The first scene, his performance in that is really good. Like, it's not even his best performance of the 60s even. He's better as Ratso in Midnight Cowboy. He's just a teenage kid going through this thing of not knowing what to do with life. He just plays himself, basically. There's nothing actually groundbreaking with that performance. Unlike
if you want to bring up Midnight Cowboy, you should have picked Midnight Cowboy. Ultimately, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. We're not arguing about Midnight Cowboy. We're arguing Graduate versus Tootsie. That's what we're arguing here.
Well, I'm just saying overall acting. I don't think he's even top. That's my thing. But yeah, you can go.
I'm saying we're arguing overacting with Michael. I think the critics, Michael Dorsey is not an overactor. That's the whole point. He is a great actor. He even says, I got great critical reviews. People love me. They don't like him because he's tough to work with, but he's not an overactor by any means. He does the exact right for the role. He's a great actor. At least that's what the character is supposed to be, but you wouldn't believe that looking at Dustin Hoffman's performance. But according to the actual dialogue of the movie, he's supposed to be a great actor, but you just say, oh, he's overacting. That's because that's the way Dustin is playing it, and he's playing it off according to the dialogue. He's playing it wrong.
No, that's exactly okay. We can fight whether he's playing it right or playing it wrong, but in the overall scene, Dorothy is the subdued character of who Michael is. He shows that he actually can be subdued, that he can actually get a role, that he can work with some people. That is him telling everybody that he's the best at everything he is, and he's overacting. There's entire scenes where it's breaking down where the directors couldn't stand him because he thinks he knows everything, and he's showing off when he's playing the tomato that you like to bring up, that's how he was playing in the role. Your problem with The Graduate, the reason why I bring up The Graduate or Midnight Cowboy or anything like that is because I don't think The Graduate's even in his top 10 performances at this point, because I don't think he is. He's just the linchpin that drives everything else. Mrs. Robinson's better than that. His girlfriend's better than him. Murray, I can't think of his name. Mr. Robinson is better. They all have this fight scene towards him that he has to be there to move the action along, but he doesn't leave any performances besides, you're making me really uncomfortable. Are you trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson? And that's it.
No, that's not just it. He has that moment. He also has the moments of clear desperation where all you're getting is just his face, and he has to tell everything about the desperations, about the situation that he is in with just his look and Sound of Silence playing in the background, and that's it. And that is telling you everything you need to know. That happens 3 distinct times in the movie, and it's one of the most iconic parts of the movie. You look at that ending when he and Catherine Ross are on the bus and how his face just completely loses everything.
Time. All right, Boatman, you now get 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Ultimately, the overacting moment, the problem with Michael Dorsey is not that he's an overactor. Even the moments that you brought up with the audition, it's never the problem with his performance. It's what he doesn't want to do that he feels is unrealistic to the character, but that's not overacting. And the moment I bring up Tomato, that's not when he's acting at all. That's when he's just talking to his agent and it feels over the top and it feels ridiculous because it's not the way humans actually talk to each other. And that's the problem with that. With The Graduate, you get the most human, realistic performance you can. You can argue things that, oh, it's not the flashiest compared to other characters, because ultimately that's not who the character of Benjamin Braddock is. You can argue it's not the best character, but that's not the question. It's best performance. And ultimately, Dustin Hoffman is playing the character of Ben Braddock perfectly, pitch perfect. He is doing exactly what that character needs, which is what makes the best performance. Whereas his performance in Michael Dorsey in Tootsie is what brings Tootsie down. He's not doing everything that needs to be done for Tootsie.
Time. All right. Cody, you now have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
I just think Tootsie overall, Michael and Dorothy are the complete balance between each other. One's over the top, assertive, annoying, can't stand anything, and Dorothy is this character that has heart and like tries to make everybody else around her better, and that shows the difference between Michael, because they're all actually the same character, but they're having to play difference. While they're sitting on the couch and she's this single mom's telling her everything about her life and everything that she needs to know, and then Dorothy just wants to come out and say, I'm Michael. I want to, have a relationship with you. I'm actually in love with you. It's this awkward situation between the build of them. Like I said, The Graduate, yes, he does great moments throughout the movie. I'm not saying he's a bad actor in that, but overall, he just is there's so many better actors in that movie, and there's so many better Dustin Hoffman performances. He plays himself. He drives the narrative. He does those iconic lines, but he's just playing nervous the entire time. It doesn't do anything groundbreaking or emotionally investing. That's the thing with Dorothy and Michael. The scenes between those are so heartbreaking.
Time. All right. All right, let's bring in dem judges. My votes did not count last time, so I'll go first. I'm going to give this one to Cody. The reason why is I really liked Cody's argument of Dustin Hoffman is just kind of playing himself just because he's doing, like, Boatman's whole thing was like he's not really doing a lot, but is doing a lot. It's like I get what Boatman was trying to say, but I think Cody's rebuttal of just because he's, doing this quiet performance doesn't make it the best, and the fact that Hoffman had to do, two characters and pulled them off in such a spectacular fashion in Tootsie made that one the better performance. So I'll give it to Cody. Robert, we'll go to you next. Where are you leaning on this one?
Yeah, this one was close. It was sort of like a bonus arguing sort of the minimalist performance and how that really stands out. Cody was sort of talking about the duality of the two different characters and how that kind of proves the better performance. It's really hard to compare the two, to be honest. Like they try to do it in the fight, but the characters and the performances really are just so different. I am also going to go with Cody on this one. I think Boatman definitely had a really good moment towards the end in his closing where he reaffirmed the question, where he was like, it's not about best character, it's about best performance. And I think if I had heard that in the middle instead, I think that rebuttal kind of came just a little bit too late in the closing. If that was like right away as soon as Cody started bringing up the character things. And I also think Boatman tripped up a little bit too much over the other movie, Midnight Cowboy. But yeah, overall, really, really good fight. I'm going to go with Cody.
All right, so Nick, your vote doesn't count on this one, but where are you going?
Well, I've never seen either of these. Shocking. I just realized there's a Family Guy skit on the plot of Tootsie, but that's a whole other thing, based on how Cody explained it. It really was really, really close, and Boatman made a really good comeback at the end. But for me, the argument of someone being sort of the linchpin that makes the other performers great, sort of that which Cody made, sort of brings that performance down for me. Where it's like he's making all the assists on the basketball team, but Cody picked one where he had like the two leading scorers on the basketball team. You know what I mean? Sports reference. So I would have gone with Cody, but just by a little bit.
All right, fair enough. So Cody does get this point. So it is 2-1 in favor of Cody. Boatman does need to hit this next one in order to go to the speed round. But the final category that is prepared is the category of Fandom Oscars. The question is, worst fandom movie to be nominated for Best Animated Feature. Both competitors have interesting choices. This one was drafted by Boatman, so he's going to get to go first. Boatman, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
What makes a movie awful? What makes a movie awful is ultimately not being for anyone. I have picked the 2003 film Brother Bear. This is a film that is too boring, too slow, too dull for kids, but too immature, too goofy, and doesn't take itself seriously enough to be appreciated when you're older. There is no one who can enjoy this movie. This is a movie that doesn't know what it wants to be. It can't focus on what it is. It's trying to be this representation of indigenous people, but then it's also supposed to be, oh, goofy modern slang. We got dude, pinky swear, and all this stuff. Ultimately, it's a film that is incredibly tonally confused, that it's too boring and too dull for kids because you've got all this moping around, but it's too immature to be taken seriously as an adult.
All right. We will move over to Cody for his opening. 1 minute when you start talking, Cody.
Those are some outlandish takes, and I will destroy you in the main round. But my thing is, what makes a bad movie? I'll tell you. I'll leave it here. Shark Tale. Shark Tale in itself. It wastes so many great characters and actors in this movie for nothing. You're talking about a movie that's not made for anybody, especially when you get older. Yeah, try watching this thing. This thing is dated for the year it came out. There is so many references. There are so many pop culture references throughout this entire thing, and none of them age well. The movie is boring. The animation is trash. It's basically that Pixar came out with Finding Nemo, and they're like, what do we need to do? Oh, we have that fish movie that we're going to put straight to DVD. We'll put it out this year. This movie looks like it should have been straight to DVD. Will Smith doesn't care. Jack Black is doing one of the worst acting, like voice acting, I have ever heard in any movie. Martin Scorsese has a way bigger part than he probably should have in any movie. Like, there are actual people that played mob bosses in this movie that he doesn't even get to play an actual, like, shark. Like, it's so bad.
All right. Brother Bear versus Shark Tale. Oofta. Okay, guys, 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
Ultimately, your movie might not be the most perfect on a technical level, but you know what? It's a kids' movie. It is a movie designed for kids, and ultimately, it is absolutely a kids' movie. That's what it was marketed towards, and ultimately, that's who can enjoy this movie. This was a movie that I don't care. I had it on repeat 24/7 as a child. Does it not hold up as well? Probably. But you know what movie I never watched as a kid except once in theaters? Brother Bear. It's a movie that is forgettable and not memorable.
I have to disagree with you. Brother Bear actually has a heart through this movie. You may not like some of the side characters. I get it that they have Canadian accents. They're a little stupid. But overall, there's actually a heart to this. There's a little brother relationship that I think kids can actually grab to. And the thing is, this is still a Disney low-tier Disney. This is low-tier Disney. This is fine. This is passable. It's not Home in the Range. It's not Chicken Little. It's not anything like that. This movie actually has somewhat heart and actually some good music throughout it. You know what they flippin' have in Shark Tale? Everybody down to the whale wash. This is like hip-hop meets animated. My 2-year-old told me to turn this shit off. Didn't say shit, but it would have made me laugh if they did. But told me to turn it off. This movie is not for kids. It's not for adults. It's boring, and I don't understand why anybody would have. It got nominated. This makes no sense. Howl's Moving Castle came out the same year.
No, it didn't.
Go ahead.
Howl's Moving Castle was nominated next year.
Oh, that's
so Howl's Moving Castle. So, but yeah, ultimately, your movie has actually, I think the interaction between Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese are actually a lot of fun. The idea of the sharks being the mafia is actually a really creative idea. Your movie has attempts at emotional moments, but ultimately they're attempts. They're really slow. You can see, as the adult, you can see, oh, he killed the kid's mother. You can see that coming a mile away, what's going on. Ultimately, there's nothing that new in the movie. And the music, you've got the Phil Collins song, that one that it's no one's favorite Phil Collins song from a Disney movie. Like, that's about it. Ultimately, my movie has, I love Working at the Whale Wash. That song is very fun. This movie, it's not aiming high, but ultimately it's exactly what it's trying to be. It's supposed to be a fun, goofy little movie for kids. That's what it is. It's goofy. It's silly. It doesn't take itself seriously. And that's what it's...
That's you're incorrect. It does take itself seriously. That's the problem. This movie is like overkill on like, it doesn't even set up good examples for children. You say it's a kids movie. It's not even set up for a good kids movie. It's basically telling kids to lie to get ahead in life, or lie to these people so you can sleep with the hotter fish that shows up. Like, that's what actually happens in Shark Tale. I don't know if you know this, but in that one, he has to live with the consequences that he killed his mother. Like, that's something that's hard-hitting, that's sad, that has emotional levels that Shark Tale couldn't even grasp if it tried to. Like, it teaches you to gamble. It teaches you to cheat on your girl that you're interested in. That's all in Shark Tale. Tell me it's a kid's movie again.
That is not what that movie is. That movie is saying all those things are bad. Do those things happen? Yes, but the whole point is that Oscar shouldn't have done, and he apologizes, and it wrecks things with Angie, and he doesn't cheat on Angie, and he doesn't try to sleep with anybody.
He goes towards that girl, absolutely, 1,000%.
He does not cheat on Angie because they're not dating. They are not dating at any point. He friend zones her, but they are not dating until
what a dick. What a dick. Everybody's been friend zoned. The reason my House and Moving Castle, it said 2004 on IMDb. Tim, that fucked you before. Remember that for me. Listen, I'm just saying your overall movie doesn't make any sense. It's a 2003, 2004 reference. That's it. Like, that's all references that either you were alive during that point and remember it, or then it just totally goes over your head. That's what this entire movie's built on. It literally has a Cribs moment that shows up at the beginning. Do you remember Cribs? No, because you were 4 years old when it happened. But I remember Cribs, and that shit happens.
V Cribs is, and I think that actually it was kind of funny satire because it's the reveal that, oh, it's just a billboard. That there are legitimately kind of clever moments in this. I think Martin Scorsese is actually very funny as he kind of becomes very egotistical. Yeah, he's Martin Scorsese, and he's not an actor, but he's doing the Martin Scorsese role, and he's very funny to see Martin Scorsese kind of do this satire of himself almost. It's very angry, and I think him working with Robert De Niro is very funny. It's a movie that is not taking itself seriously. It's a fun, dumb comedy.
No.
But that's what it is. It's supposed to be dumb. It's supposed
because
to be funny.
It's like watching like the arm thing in front of a dealership. Shit. You can take 5 seconds off my closing. I'll do that.
You're fine. Okay, we are gonna give Cody now a minute to close his argument. 1 minute when you start talking.
Like, I hate that he's insulting Brother Bear the way it is. Is it top-notch Disney? Absolutely not. Does it follow what Lilo and Stitch before that? No. But it actually doesn't tell a heart story about two people that are not actually related that can have a brotherly bond, that they actually have to bond over a moment that actually could have broken that friendship or ruined that little kid by him killing his mother. Like, those are moments that they actually grow, and, like, the entire tribe changes. You can turn that movie on at any point and get some message out of it, even though the songs in the movie are not the most, they're not Tarzan level, but they're still catchy. Shark Tale has working at the whale wash. It's awful. It teaches kids bad messaging. It's not even great voice acting, and it has the stellar cast in it. It has Angelina Jolie. It has Robert De Niro, Will Smith, Jack Black, and they're all fucking wasted throughout this entire thing. It should have been straight to DVD. It makes no sense why it was nominated, and it's not even for children. It's not even for adults. It's aged in 2004, and that's where it should stay because this movie is garbage.
All right. Let's bring in Mr. Boatman. 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Ultimately, Brother Bear has attempts at heart. You have attempts at connection between Joaquin Phoenix and the Kid Bear, but ultimately they're attempts and they don't work. And ultimately, so they don't really fully connect, so you can't really enjoy them as an adult. And kids don't want to see that. It's boring. So ultimately, it doesn't work for kids. It doesn't work for adults. Does Shark Tale work for adults? No, but that's not what it's trying to. It's a message for kids about lying and being yourself, and ultimately that's what the movie is. That's the message. Oscar gets into consequences when he lies about being the shark slayer. Ultimately, things only end up working out for him once he tells the truth and tells everyone who he is. And Lenny starts showing his dad who he really is. Ultimately, Shark Tale, it's meant to be a message for kids about lying and being yourself. And it's supposed to be goofy. It's supposed to be this crazy world. And that's what we're getting. We're getting a movie that doesn't take itself seriously and just says, you know what? It's okay to just do a movie for kids.
Time. All right. Let's bring in judges. A lot of things are said in this. We talked about fish. We started this by saying no leeches and no pies, but we talked about fishes fucking and
Hey, if you do fish fucking right, you win Best Picture. Let's be real.
So Nick, your vote I believe didn't count last time. So you have the pleasure of going first on this one.
Okay. So the only reason. Hang on. Okay. First of all, it was hilarious. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. Second of all, the only reason I bring this up is because Boatman used it as part of his argument. Nobody connects to this. Nobody goes back to it. Nobody watched it when they were younger. I did that. And I actually watched it again recently, and I still kind of like it. Now, that's just a small thing, but that was just a big part of Boatman's argument that, like, no one likes it. And I was sitting here like, well, I like it. But I did like a lot of his hits on it, but the problem is there weren't enough for me. Boatman said there's attempts at heart that fall flat, and Cody kind of said, well, at least there's attempts, and in Shark Tale, it's just all the nonsense that was sort of listed off. So for those reasons, I'm going to go Cody on this one, but it was a valiant effort.
All right, Robert, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, I also like Brother Bear, but that I'm trying not to like let that influence me. I'm just trying to like listen to how Boatman argued, and really how Cody argued as well. Like, it's tough. I think when it comes down to the arguments, which one is worse? I think Boatman made a really strong point about like there is enjoyability in Shark Tale, even for certain like kids, and even though I don't agree with it, I think he argued that the lack of enjoyability in Brother Bear. So I think based on the arguments, I have to vote Boatman. So Tim, I'm sorry, but that's where I'm going for that one. I as much as I hate Shark Tale, I really do. I just think that Boatman, like, I think he said enough where I'm like, yeah, I guess a kid probably could like that.
I hate this so much. This is the worst. And this was my idea, so I brought this upon myself for doing this exhibition. Fuck. So for me, the big points of the argument, Boatman talked a lot about how Brother Bear isn't for anyone and gave a lot of like specific reasons on like why it's not good for kids, why it's not good for adults, and really hammered the point home of Shark Tale, albeit having these bad things in it, is entertaining for kids at least. And it is a kids movie, whereas Brother Bear has it doesn't have anything for kids or adults, and that was a big thing for me, so I have to give it to Boatman. I really hate my life. Oh, okay, so
can we just talk for a second that we essentially just ruled that Shark Tale is a better movie?
Like, I literally said my 2-year-old told me to turn it off, and you're saying, oh, it's good for kids. Makes sense. Okay, let's go fucking speed round.
All right. So here's how the speed round is going to work. We have a category. I have a question ready to go. I will ask the question. Once I've said the question, the competitors have time to think about what they're going to say. Whoever says an answer first is going to go first. They will get 45 seconds to open. The opponent will then get 45 seconds. Then we will go for another 30 on the first person, 30 for the second person, and that will be it. If you need to use the friendly help of Google to get to an answer, feel free. And yeah, are there any questions as we get into it? Nope. Okay, good. All right, so the category, and I will stay on screen the whole time to give you guys counts and everything, but the category is biopics. The question is best biopic of the 2010s.
Steve Jobs.
Boatman. Oh, it's the Social Network.
Okay. So, Cody spoke first. So, he is going to go first. You have 45 seconds whenever you start talking.
Steve Jobs is a movie with Fassbender delivering a performance over 3 events of his life that actually shows the character of Steve Jobs and what he was during the life. You don't have to see a start to finish, basically, for him to understand what kind of character he is because of that delivery. Social Network, the problem with Social Network is a lot of things came out to be inaccurate. Like a lot of the stuff is not real or doesn't actually hold up into this point. So yes, the movie overall is a great movie, but overall as a biopic, it doesn't actually tell the story of Mark Zuckerberg in a correct way because wouldn't sell great for a movie. I think Steve Jobs is actually, you learn the character of Steve Jobs and understand what he did and how ruthless and how driven he was to make Apple what Apple was, and you get that from 3 events instead of, oh, he started as a child and then where he died. You get it all in one take.
Time. All right, Boatman, 45 seconds when you start talking.
Ultimately, Steve Jobs isn't that accurate of a movie either. John Scully never talked to Steve Jobs after he left Apple the first time. Steve Wozniak never asked Steve Jobs to acknowledge the Apple II team. In fact, Steve Jobs' daughter basically denounced the movie, saying it was completely inaccurate. So Steve Jobs is not an accurate movie. Ultimately, Social Network is a movie that is about capturing the transformation of Mark Zuckerberg as a person, and how he's motivated by the breakup, over to how this causes him to kind of filter that in through his relationships with Sean Parker and Eduardo Saverin. That's what this movie is about. And ultimately, it's Sorkin at his dialogue best. Some of the best lines. I'm not coming back for 3%. I'm coming back for everything.
Time. All right, Cody, 30 seconds when you start talking.
Overall, where the Social Network thing is, it's not Zuckerberg, because Zuckerberg, yes, is that driving force that created Facebook, but overall, he stays the same character the entire time. Yes, the breakup, and then he becomes a total douchebag the entire movie, and that's who he was. The best character is not even the character that it's about. It's about, but Steve Jobs, you actually get that character. You actually, regardless of accuracy or not, I guess, but the viewpoint is that he's so driven, so determined to make Apple what it was, that you can see that in 3 events over the course of how many events he actually did for Apple, and that shows how great of a dialogue, and the script is amazing.
Boatman, 30 seconds when you start.
You are getting the transformation of Mark Zuckerberg, though. You're getting him starting out as more awkward, more driven, and then he slowly gets more driven, more intense, and more calculating. And ultimately, that's what he is. He's starting out as more sad and desperate as he goes more calculating and dark. Ultimately, Steve Jobs, you're getting 3 different points, but you're not getting the transformation. You're just getting, he's here, he's here, he's here, and that's about it. And ultimately, accuracy, if it matters to my movie, it's got to matter to your movie too. And my movie.
Time. All right. Let's bring the judges back in. I was the deciding vote last time, so I'm going to go first. I am going to go with Cody. I think that his point about there is a large transformation of the character from the beginning over the course of many events. And we get an insight into the specific. We get to learn this character, see his transformation Whereas in Social Network, Zuckerberg is kind of the same character from beginning to end. There's better characters than the one that's actually the main focus of the biopic. So I'm going to give my point to Cody. Nick, we'll go to you next.
Okay. There was a lot of talk about like accuracy, which I'll be honest, I didn't think that mattered. So that was sort of Nick for both points. They both mentioned the dialogue and how the dialogue's great. At the end of the day, I don't think the fact that like other characters were better than Zuckerberg is necessarily a knock against the Social Network. And Boatman sort of pointed out a flaw or two in Steve Jobs. So sorry, Robert, but by a hair, I'm going to give it to Boatman.
All right, Robert, it comes down to you.
Great. Just what I wanted. Yeah, this is tough. I agree with Nick. They both said a lot of the same things because in certain ways these movies are very similar. Like they both got the great Sorkin dialogue. They've both got a great leading performance about the main character. They've both got like the inaccuracies of what actually happened. So all of that kind of went aside, and you have what's left of the arguments. Really, like they were both kind of trying to make arguments about character transformation, which I don't necessarily know if that's the most important part of the biopics, but neither of them said that it wasn't an important part. Both of them tried to argue for it, so that's just what the argument became a little bit. I think Cody had a really, really great point that, like, the focus of the story wasn't the most interesting part of the story, where, like, the other characters were better around Zuckerberg. Oh, man. Why am I in this position? Yeah, the question was best biopic of the 2010s, and I think Cody's point about the supplemental characters being better, I really think that was a huge. I do think that was a big knock against Social Network. I think that is a knock against it standing as a biopic. So for that reason, I am gonna go to Cody, but I hate that's just so close.
Yep. Well, so with that, your winner is Cody Newberry. With a score of 3-2. Very close match. This was a great match to open up Mayhem with. Very fun match. We talked about Fish. We talked about some good movies, some bad movies. It was a good time. Cody, we'll go to you first. You've won your second exhibition now in Nerdgasm / Fanzone. Are you happy with the way you played today?
No, I lost. I lost this match. I lost Sharktail versus Brother Bear, which apparently saying that it's not for everybody means that it's not for everybody. I should just say that, soda's the best thing for your body, and that apparently makes it fact. So I lost in my eyes because he was able to convince you that Brother Bear was a worse movie than Sharktail, and if you watched them, I don't understand that at all. So yeah, I mean. It was a rough battle because I was like, Albert Brooks, I can fight Albert Brooks. And then I thought I did a pretty good job, but apparently no one saw the movie. So at the end of the day, the scenes don't matter. Like I could bring up funny moments, but you didn't watch it. So, I mean, it was a tough battle overall. Boatman actually was pretty prepared for this fight. So he was probably the hardest person I've ever had to play in debate, I would say. Like that was real tough. I didn't think I won the last question. So I appreciate it, but I thought I lost. So hats off to Boatman. I would gladly play Boatman again without Robert or Tim anywhere near this call.
Yikes. I think we voted for you a lot, too.
I think I lost more Robert votes than anybody else. I think he was doing it for a fave, so that's fair.
That's fair. Boatman, we'll move over to you. You were one Robert away from beating Cody Newberry in debate. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I kind of feel like I just went all the rounds with Apollo. So I feel pretty good about that. Like, ultimately, Cody won because he is the best. I did not expect to win the Shark Tale question. I had to do a lot of, let's just call it what it is, lying to get that question right. But
We know.
ultimately, I knew when that question came up that I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do some legwork here because Shark Tale was the correct answer. So I just had to, okay, what's my second pick that's different so much enough from Shark Tale that I can find an argument? And that's what I do. I just try to find those little loopholes that I can just sneak in there. Ultimately, I think we gave the people a great fight. I want to say I took Cody farther than anyone else is taking Cody, which I feel like I should be proud of because Cody is the best. So ultimately, I wanted to be able to say that I went toe-to-toe with the best, and I think that's what I did today. So nothing but mad respect for Cody. He fought. He does what he does in debate. I'm just happy I didn't get destroyed.
Yeah, this was a great match overall. I'm very, very happy with the way this turned out. Going to the last question in the speed round is a great way to open up this event and a great way to show off the power of Fanzone and what it can be. I like it a lot. So let's move over to the judges. Mr. Tuig, your first judging is officially completed. What are your final thoughts on the match?
That was fun. You two are insane for the Shark Tale thing, but that's fine. It was great. It was fun. It was good to watch. I thought Boatman had him, clearly by the way I voted. But anything can happen. And if so, Cody's should say ain't gonna be no rematch, and then immediately do a rematch.
You got lucky, punk.
There you go. Fair enough. Robert,
Yo,
your final.
Is Coho your Adrian?
I needed a name to yell. Give me a break.
Okay, no, I respect it. I just want to see that Photoshop now. Yeah, this was a good match, of course. Obviously, these two are two of the best debaters. It's interesting in certain scenarios where, when it comes down to the picks themselves, you don't necessarily agree with them. It's just how the player fights. That's the genius of debate. Is there sometimes debating stuff that they don't believe in, and sometimes that is enough to convince us that they debated better. So that's how today went. It's still a really good match. I think both of the last two picks, I think those were the right two picks for that question. And yeah, it came down to those last few seconds. So definitely both players played very, very well today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, that'll do it for us here at Fanzone for this exhibition match. Stay tuned because directly after this, we have an awesome Multiplex Factions 50-50 match 4v4. It is going to be very intense. The Kingsmen and the First Order are teaming up to fight the Criterion Collection and Cinema Asylum in a 50-50 match. So that'll be very interesting. So stay tuned. That is directly after this. And thanks for watching Mayhem. Remember, video 2, video 3, we've got Warzone titles and Fandom titles on the line later on today. So be on the lookout for those matches. They are going to be very, very good, I hope. So, yeah, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of Mayhem.